out my roadcaster and microphone. I just moved, for those who don't know. I moved from one part of Seattle, Capitol Hill, to Ballard. And still getting my bearings on the area, unpacking things. Haven't had time to cut my forest of a hair, which may or may not be receding at the top, as has been pointed out to some of you very, very kind listeners. I'm in the dentist. My phone's blowing up, and I'm wondering what the heck is going on, because there was a lot. I actually have a text line with some of my colleagues from 710 ESPN Seattle, and I thought to myself, okay, well, maybe there's some inside joke that's taking place that I'm still trying to grasp. Something's going on, but didn't really think anything of it. And I mean, why should I? Why would you if your phone was blowing up? But while I'm at the dentist, I finally get up. It's like 3:10 Pacific time. And I see from Brock Heward, and I see from my friend Mike Lefko and some others that Bill O'Brien, the head coach of the Houston Texans, the general manager of the Houston Texans, the first head coach that I ever covered, the head coach who was hired right before I was hired as a full-time host, has been fired as head coach of the Houston Texans. So I'm going to open things up to you guys. I haven't done Ask Gallant anything in a while, and I feel like what more appropriate a reason than this one? Because, wow, I'm shocked. I really am shocked. You saw somebody like O'Brien who was able to consolidate the amount of power that he did. It seemed like it was really unlikely that this guy was actually going to get forced out, right? I mean, how would that take place? And while I try to figure out how to make sure that I'm re-streaming this thing on all the apps pertinent that I can, Twitter at Gallant Says, Facebook.com/PaulGallantSports, all of that jazz, I can't get over the fact that a guy who seemed to have amassed all of the power in the organization was fired. Yes, they were 0-4. It's something else. But it was a long time coming. The story of Bill O'Brien is a story about a couple of different things that you should always avoid doing. Number one, being a control freak is generally bad. I find myself guilty of this from time to time. Generally, we want to make sure that everything is under our thumbs, our fingertips, and you saw it from the very beginning with Bill O'Brien. He comes in, new head coach. Rick Smith's the general manager, survives, for some reason, the end of Gary Kubiak. And you think to yourself, okay, well, you got one guy from the old guard, one guy from the new guard. Differing opinions are probably going to lead to compromises in maybe what's in the best possible interest of the Houston Texans. But over time, you hear rumblings about how Bill O'Brien and Rick Smith don't see eye to eye. And you wonder why. Why is this? I remember vividly, and I actually at one point did have a decent relationship with Bill O'Brien. And I remember thinking to myself at the very end of the 2017 year that Bill wasn't going to make it. And I remember asking around and seeing what the heck was going on. I thought he was going to get fired at the end of the year. It seemed like he and Rick Smith weren't seeing eye to eye anymore, and I thought that Rick Smith was a made man with the Houston Texans. Lo and behold, Bill O'Brien survived. But I was happy with it. I was thinking to myself, why did Rick Smith survive in the first place? Why? He hadn't done anything of value, and he and the Texans under Gary Kubiak, I thought, had been quite disappointing. That's when things started to change, and one of the things that O'Brien's always had a difficult time with is just handing control over to other people. And I would specifically look at the offense and some of the coordinators that they have had as offensive coordinators. George Godsey and most recently Tim Kelly. There have been a lot of people that have just not been able to figure out the offense that Bill O'Brien's trying to run. And my theory is that O'Brien, having worked with Tom Brady, saw an offense being mastered but he wasn't exactly sure how to teach others to master it the same way that Tom Brady did. In fact, O'Brien may never have actually mastered this offense that he was trying so hard to teach to quarterback after quarterback after quarterback. And that control freak side of him, when it comes to the offense and when it comes to roster construction, those are red flags going forward. I used to think that it was actually in the best interest of the team to have a head coach and general manager that were in the same chair. And that's because I grew up a New England Patriots fan, and I believed that Bill Belichick is not so different than everybody else that it can never be done again, what he's able to do. But that's what we're learning here, isn't it? You can't do everything because you're not going to be good at everything. That's just how it works. So Bill O'Brien being a control freak on that front, it led to Bill O'Brien being a control freak when it comes to roster construction. And I'll specifically point at guys that I think he had an issue with, whether it was over work ethic or attitude. First off, Jadeveon Clowney. He wanted to trade Jadeveon Clowney. His disdain for Jadeveon Clowney, I think, led to him ultimately getting nothing in return for him. And I think that Clowney actually would have played out last year under the Texans. I think the Texans could have used him. Their defense needed some playmakers. It still does. But because O'Brien handled it the way that he didn't get full market return for him. And I think that was a big learning lesson for him. And then this offseason, you trade DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson. And a second-round pick. Like, it's the best wide receiver in the game, and you're seeing how well Hopkins has done at least the first couple of weeks in Arizona, though Arizona's offense didn't look so hot Sunday against Carolina. So that's the first part of this. O'Brien was a control freak, and guess what? Control freaks, generally, they are going to lose. You have to trust people around you in the NFL, in whatever profession you're in, your family even. You can't go lone wolf all life. Yes, the idea of being lone wolf McQuaid and living in a shack by yourself that's filled entirely with beer and no nutritional supplements is just a cool seeming life, right? You need somebody else to help you out. That's just the way that it goes. And O'Brien, that was his biggest problem. Number two, the way that you treat people, it goes a long way. I think that I'm a lot like Bill O'Brien, and I'm not going to dance on his grave like a lot of people are today, because I see some of my own worst qualities that I'm aware of in Bill O'Brien. He has got a really short temper. I think he gets really mad over things for about 5 minutes, and then I think he gets over them. And I don't think he's necessarily a bad person, but when he loses his mind, like when I lose my mind, he is a monster to be around. It's something I'm working on. It's something Bill O'Brien needs to work on. I remember vividly one day where I was at NRG Stadium finishing editing and cutting up audio for the Texans to be used on other shows during the day. I remember being annoyed that I was doing it too, because I hated doing it. And I heard just a bunch of screaming and shouting in the background. And I thought to myself, okay, what's going on here? That was Bill O'Brien. Now, I don't know who he was yelling at, but I heard that and I just remembered it. And then you see all these rumors and stories about Bill O'Brien that's shrieking and yelling and getting angry at people. So those are the people that are his colleagues. I'm assuming that was either a head coach or a public relations person or something like that. I really do not know. And I imagine there were times where he was like that with his players, no matter how much the players at times did like him. And when I think about all of that, that's also a recipe for a disastrous end. And it seems like that's ultimately also something that did him in. You can't yell at everybody all the time when you're not Bill Belichick. You can't. And Bill Belichick, by the way, he doesn't necessarily do that either. You got to treat people better, and you got to have people around you that are helping you out. It's weird. I can't believe that he's gone with all the power that he amassed. But it's about damn time, right? 0-4 start, underachieving year after year after year. Deshaun Watson, the guy has not developed at all. And I remember back in 2017, some of you guys were getting mad at me. 2018, check that. When was Patrick Mahomes' first year as a starter? 2018. Some of you guys were getting mad at me because I thought Patrick Mahomes was just way better. Way better. And by the way, he was, and he still is. Watson never really developed. 2018, he's probably at about the same level that he was there. Takes a little bit too long with some of the decisions. Doesn't exactly have the best grasp of this Bill O'Brien offense, which again, that might not necessarily be his fault, but there are things that he needs to get better at. And O'Brien, who was given all of these bad quarterbacks and somehow wasn't able to finagle wins with them, was not able to get it done with a guy who we all can agree has unbelievable talent, even if he's not one of the best in the game, based off of what we have seen thus far this year. So that's another big problem. He says he wants to coach again. I honestly, I don't know who's going to want to bring him in. Just given what I said. Do you want a control freak assistant coach who has been in charge of two things, Penn State football and then the Houston Texans for almost the last decade? Do you really want to deal with that? I don't think I would. Would you really want to deal with someone who, at the very least, on the outside looking in, seems to have organized several coups when it comes to, first off, the ousting of Rick Smith, second off, this strange new tandem that he had, at the very least, with Jack Easterby. By the way, I don't trust Jack Easterby at all. I can't believe it. That guy's amassed the power that he has in the Texans organization. Very Littlefinger-esque. I don't trust him. Honestly, I think I would trust Joel Osteen more than I trust Jack Easterby, and I really don't base that off of a whole lot other than I just hear some, I'm just not somebody that follows people like that. It sort of makes me cringe. Gives me goosebumps, but I would not want to work with someone like O'Brien. It seems like O'Brien knows the way to play the political game when in an organization, and I just wouldn't want to have to deal with that. And it's not to say that I think he's actually like an above average to good coach. I really do. But his roster construction skills, absolutely horrible. Just absolutely horrible. And we'll see what's next for him. And I'm very curious to see what's next for the Texans. So there you go. I know that some people wanted it. I hope that this stream got out to all the different platforms that it's supposed to. It seems like it only went out to Facebook, so that's a bummer. Anyway, hope you're having a wonderful day, and we'll